Warning, this show contains adult language, so viewer and listener discretion is advised. Welcome to another edition of Up and In It. I'm your host, Adrian Babashoff, and if you're new here, welcome as well. And if you're wondering what the show is about, it's entirely dedicated to improving quality of life for both people and planet through liberation and independence, moving you from surviving to thriving and living life raw. Today is episode 192, Back to the Land. This is another series I think that I want to do. It's in popular demand. A lot of buzz about it. Particularly, I wanted to talk about what we would need to do with land. So there's like a pandemic retreat. There's a lot of rich people buying up big farmland, and they're kind of freaking out, thinking, why don't I buy myself a farm and work it and get sustainable? And there's a lot of things that need to happen. And I kind of wanted to talk about that today. But before I do, just wanted to let you guys know the background noise is my F-350 diesel 96 pickup truck. It's very loud. That's the background noise. I'm on my way back from my work commute for today, and that's when I do my podcast in my mobile studio here for the time being. So let's get into it. So pandemic retreat. This could be very precarious if you don't know what you're doing. I think if land just sits fallow, you don't do anything with it, it can cost you some money, depending on where you're at in the country or in the world, I guess, for that matter. So you want to set up some things. I think that you get way over your head, even with just 5 acres, let alone, 20, 50, 100 acres. So what necessarily do we need to do to actually become sustainable? And one of the things that I practice a lot and that I really like to put a part of the show is called permaculture. And it's basically farming with nature, manipulating the land with such things as earthworks. And we're going to talk a lot of things about permaculture in this Back to the Land movement. So earthworks is something, whether you're a rich person or anybody wanting to get on a farm, I think that it would be wise for people to accommodate some money, some working capital for such things like machinery, such as a tractor, or even maybe renting like a bulldozer with a bucket, basically any kind of tractors that you can move some earth with. Why do we want to do some earthworks? Why do we want to move some earth? Well, there's many reasons for such things as fire breaks, but the main reason I think is that you'd want to level out some land. You'd want to do terracing. Again, a lot of this depends on what kind of land you have. Is it very flat, or does it have an incline to it? So whether it had an incline or it was flat-ish, we would still want to dig ourselves some waterways. And these things are what we call swales. Swales are basically carving out a ditch on contour to the land. So if you've ever seen a topographical map and you could see the lines, that's basically what you would do with your land. For those of you who don't know what a topographical map is, it shows you the levels of satellite imagery where you can actually trace out, if I can describe this one right. Basically, there's lines that are showing you a level, and you'll see like it looks really squiggly. Well, it'll say like 30 feet, right? It'll have a number 30 in between. And that means that's a 30 feet altitude. But that whole line there is, the wider it is, the flatter the land is. But that line's telling you that's at 30 feet. And then you go to 40 feet, and then 50, and 100 feet, and so on. So basically what we're looking at is that's a contour. And the smaller the circle, the circumference of the area in a topographical map is, that's the highest point, that's the peak of a mountain, right? So you'll see it kind of like a triangular shape if you were looking down, say like at a pyramid. So I think you would definitely want to have somebody who knows how to do earthworks and how to use a level, a laser level and things like that, to carve out these swales so that you can hold water retention on your land. Oh my goodness, there's so much to talk about on this. So you would dig these ditches on contour, and every time it rains, you would be able to hold that soil, all that moisture in the ground. It would capture instead of it running off. This is going to do multiple things for you. It's going to help you from land erosion, and it's also going to help you grow food, such as trees and vegetable gardens, and even waterworks for your animals and your plants. You can basically connect all of these ditches that you would carve out in your land into little water storage areas, meaning like ponds and creeks and things like that. You can literally carve these things out with some earthworks, and you can store a heck of a lot more water. You can run pipeline underground so that you can drain water from one ditch to the other. No mechanics necessary, just a large, I would say, nothing smaller than like a 10-inch pipe. And what you would do is have an elbow on the end. Well, that's kind of crazy to explain, especially for those who aren't watching without a whiteboard. But it's basically like a little elbow that comes out. And say it stands about 5 feet tall on the end cap. You would be able to adjust this elbow back and forth to actually drain and level out, say, your small lake, your pond, right? So if you tilted this little L shape at the end and you got the opening, water would start to spill out. And if you had it, let's say, at I don't know, like a 45 degree, at a 90 degree angle, right? And you would be draining about a foot off of your pond possibly here, and you would be draining that into the next swales. So you'd be able to, with gravity and simple just piping, be able to move water around your property. And you'd want to do this for the dry seasons especially. You'd want to capture rain. So I would look into earthworks, swales. There's so much to talk about. I think that if you are going back to the land, you need to figure out what to plant. And when it comes to what to plant, I think it's a lot of understanding your biome, meaning that you want to see wherever the part of the country that you're buying, you want to understand what's going on there. You want to be able to plant trees and grow things that are actually going to survive. So what's indigenous? I live in San Diego, Sunnyside, California, and what we have here is very dry, a dry climate. What do they call that here? Arid. Mediterranean climate. There we go. So what we have here is a lot of cactuses and things like that. When I think about what would I grow in this area, around a bunch of oak trees, and we've got eucalyptus here, which eucalyptus would be really good for like firewood and stuff like that. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for building materials because it's kind of like a spiraled grain, and it wants to twist up and everything. It is very rare that you get some nice and straight limbs off of this thing that aren't kind of got some crooks in it. But it makes excellent firewood, especially if you were doing such things as a rocket mass stove. If you don't know what that is, look it up. I don't got time to explain it here today. But it would work for poles and things like that, building chicken coops. It's got a natural antifungal matter in it, just like oaks. But getting back to the trees and what's going on around here, I would see a forest that I would grow amongst the swales that these ditches that I speak of. And at my biome here, I think I would do a lot of carob. Carob is very drought tolerant. I think we would do olives. So I want to explain to you guys the things that I would grow and why. I would grow such things as mesquite. You can eat the flowers. You can sell the wood for smoking and things like that. Mesquite wood, there's a market, I think, for that you can sell this kind of stuff to make some money off of it. So I just kind of sprinkle in a couple of mesquite. I probably wouldn't go too crazy, but carob would be a good thing for the family and also for sales as well. As far as nut trees and things like that, fruit trees, it's very difficult, I think, to grow something in such a dry climate here. Now we can do like citrus and things like that and avocados, but they would take some water. And that's when the earthworks would really come in handy. And we'd want to plant these things towards the bottom of our land. Boy, I know I'm going all over the place here, but I just kind of want to wet your guys' whistle here. But getting back, let's see, to the trees. So if we had a canopy of, I'd say another one I'd add is date palms, right? We get some date fruits. Those things are really drought tolerant. They grow in the desert. So we got dates, and we got intermingled with that. We got olives, we got carob, and we have mesquite trees. Underneath there, I would plant such things as aloe vera right at the foot of the trees. I would do other things such as agave. That would be above the aloe vera. And then intermixed in there, I would do some cactuses, prickly pears, things like that, nopalitos. If you guys are the Spanish, Mexican culture, you can actually eat the cactus apples and you can eat the ears. So those are all edible things right there, and those are things that would work really good in my biome. So you basically want to find out what grows in your area, and then if you're going for a small scale, even I'd say like 5 acres, and you got such thing as deer and elk, the wild animals, you're going to have to compete with them unless you fence these guys out, and they can be very, very difficult. So growing something to be sustainable, I would say you'd want to do it on a fairly large scale, and especially if this is just a sort of retreat area that you kind of have like a standby. I think a lot of things you would need to be there. A lot of your plants, you need to be there to keep an eye on them. It wouldn't be something that you could just go like once, twice, 3 times a year. You can get literally decimated in a matter of just a few months. Those deer, they'll eat the apple trees down to nothing unless you get them established. So understanding your biome, I think water, as we said, is one of the most important components. Digging the swales, we've already talked about. Hugelkultur is another thing that you can do, where it's basically burying wood. So if you were able to cut down a few trees, or you had some fallen limbs, some dead fairly large limbs, about 6 inch in diameter, depending on what type of wood too. If it's oak or eucalyptus, these are kind of things that, again, they have antifungal. They don't like to decompose very fast. They last a long time. That's why they make great posts and things like that. So you'd want to find something that has like alder or any kind of fruit trees or pine, things like that. Let them dry out. And basically what you would do is, on contour of your land, of course, you can integrate a hugelkultur mound with a swale, with those ditches that hold water, remember? So basically what you're going to do is you're going to dig down a few feet in the ground. You're going to bury all this rotting wood, this dry wood, and then you're going to cover it up with the remaining topsoil that you dug that hole with. And they basically look like, I'd say, like a parking block, right? A pyramid, but a long parking block, a long hump. And you would put these in line with your swales so that they could soak the water. And what the wood is going to do is it's going to hold water like a sponge. It's also going to hold nutrients. And within your first few years, you probably 2 to 3 years in my estimation, what's going to happen is that wood's going to suck up all the nitrogen and a lot of the vitamins and minerals and things like that, like a sponge. So you're not going to really have great growth the first few years, but after that wood decomposes and releases, now it's going to work as a sponge, and it's going to slowly leach out the nitrogen and vitamins and minerals. So growing trees on these swales, depending on how high you make them, look it up, hugelkultur, added to swales. Hugelkultur, I don't even know how to spell that thing. If you type it in even close, you guys can find it there. But there's so many. Permaculture has been something that I've been into studying and practicing for many, many years, and it's just, once you get in it, it's hard to get out. But that is definitely the answer for your property. Now, depending on where you're at in the world too, I think it's per square foot, you get about 0.5-ish, about a half a gallon of water, give or take. So on 1 inch of rain, on a structure, you can imagine a 10 by 10 foot area. I should have got these notes down, but it's something ridiculous, like 800 something gallons, I believe, off of 1 inch rain. So depending on where you're living, whether it's Florida, Oregon, Washington, South Carolina, Hawaii, Louisiana, a lot of these places rain a lot. So you can actually capture your own water for drinking, for irrigation, for your land, for your plants. Rainwater is one of the most cleanest water. I think it's the cleanest water on the planet besides a full-blown spring, but it's very difficult to find groundwater that isn't tainted with something. I think that's going to bring me into here with, you want to watch on your land. Remember how we were talking about if we do swales and it holds the moisture, right? It basically, the water goes into the dirt, soaks in. It's capped off with the top of the soil, so the sun can't really dehydrate it. So all this accumulation of moisture is slowly traveling underground on contour, using gravity to go down, using the path of least resistance. Well, one thing, if you have a well at your property, if you have any septic tanks that are uphill from you, if you do your research, a lot of septic tanks have these pipings that come up when the tank actually fills up. It's a leach line, so it's only a few feet underground. Well, guess what? That's poo and pea water that's leaching out into the soil. Where is that going to? It's sinking into the ground, and it could be heading towards your place. So I would give advice, if someone was purchasing land, to try to get butt up to national forest, so that it's right in your range, right where the incline is coming down, and that way you have nothing but springs and natural rainwaters and things like that instead of somebody's septic tank leaching into your property. And I believe that's why we get salty wells. That's why we have to have them tested. It's not like you can just drill a well and just get clean water and expect to do nothing about it. So animal integrations is the next one. We spoke about wild animals, but using chickens, again, if you're going to live on the property, you can use chickens to tear up your garden for you. You can fence these things into like a 20 by 20 foot area. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to let these dinosaurs, these little chickens, go in there, and they're going to scratch up the dirt. They're going to eat all the bugs for you. They're going to eat all the weeds. They're like goats. They'll just decimate everything that's in that area. Then what are they going to do? They're going to poop in the soil, and they're going to scatter it around. Now you can go and actually start adding a compost pile to this center of your garden, and different areas. Make a mound. You want like a 4-foot compost pile? These chickens will actually have that thing scattered in a matter of like a week, down to nothing. So you can utilize this example, and I'm only giving you guys one, where you can actually have the chickens working for you to eliminate pests, to fertilize, to actually scratch up your soils, and make your place very growable, basically. So there is so much to do. I just wanted to wet your guys' whistle and find out if this is a series that you guys would like to hear about. There's just so much to share. It's hard to do it all in one sitting. So you guys, that's the show for today. If you like it, if I brought you some value, please like, subscribe, review, help me get this show going. Yeah, I need your guys' support for it. So that's all I'm asking right now is please like, subscribe. And if there's something you guys want to hear, suggestions, there's upandinit@gmail.com. Everything's in the description below. You guys can get a hold of me, email me direct there. If you guys like this sort of thing, it's Up and In It, and it's on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and anywhere where they'll allow me to post these podcasts. So as I always say, guys, go out there and have yourself a near-life experience. Don't lose your muchness. Carry on the fire. Human up. Live it, love it, own it, and bone it, my friend.